Can you explain to the students what justice might look like for victims of crime?
Well, there are different ways of thinking about the concept of justice.
Yep.
If you said to someone out on the street, what does justice mean? They might use words such as fairness and equity, and they are important words. But in the context of the criminal justice system, for want of a better way of explaining it, there are two types of justice. There is distributive justice, which is the outcome, and to what extent does, for example, the sentence adequately reflect the harm that had been done to the victim, and to what extent does the sentence match the victim's expectations about what it would be a fair sanction or fair punishment for the harm that has been done to them. The other type of justice is procedural justice, and that relates to respect and dignity and a way that the person is treated, the victim is treated as they navigate, for example, the criminal justice system. So the way that the police treat them with respect, dignity, compassion can be very influential in terms of whether the victim actually feels that the process itself has been just, fair, equitable. One of the things that I found as the Commissioner for Victims' Rights is that in order to ensure a fairly level playing field when it came to, for example, key decisions that impacted upon victims, that I would engage legal counsel. Because if you think about it, for example, in a charge bargain situation, the accused person, the defendant, has legal counsel either privately engaged or through legal aid. The state is represented through a prosecutor, whether it be police or a lawyer in the DPP who is legally trained. And there is a victim who's already grappling with a daunting, largely legalistic world that is strange, foreign to them, and then having to be actively involved in a key decision that not only would affect them in terms of the criminal proceedings, but may have implications for them later, for example, in terms of their eligibility for state-funded victim compensation, or even the public's perception about their deservedness as a victim of crime. And a classic example of that would be where a child was raped and a decision was made to accept a plea to unlawful sexual intercourse. The unlawful sexual intercourse, by the nature of the offence, suggests that there's a possibility the victim consented and it was just wrong because of the age of the victim, whereas rape quite clearly suggests that this was not only a sexual act, but there was no consent. It was indeed very violent. And that the decision to accept the plea to the lesser, the unlawful sexual intercourse, and that's lesser in law, might be an administrative decision to expedite the process from a perspective of the prosecutor, minimise the risk of a not guilty outcome from the point of view of the offender, to minimise the possibility they'll go to prison. But what about the victim? And so I found that equity, by, for example, giving them a legal representation, was an important component of helping the victim attain procedural justice. The research that the Assistant Commissioner, Sarah Fletcher, and I published on parole hearings is a very good example whereby if you get the procedural justice correct, then victims can be more accepting of the distributive justice, the outcome, even when it doesn't match what they perceive as being appropriate and fair.